Okay, thank you for tuning into the Teach Me DeFi podcast once again. Today we'll be talking about governance. So, if you're a holder of dot coins, for example, and you've never voted or never delegated your vote and you think it's complicated, we'll show you today how it's not, how it's easy, and how you can do it, and why it might be in your interest to do it. And if you're already more advanced, we'll also talk about OpenGov in general and about Polkassembly. So that might be interesting. Today, our guest is Param, product lead at Polkassembly. Hi, mate. Good to have you here.
Hey, Sohail, thank you for hosting me. Lovely being a part of this podcast and looking forward to sharing some interesting answers and some interesting discussions.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. I think it's a good time to talk about governance with all the things happening on Polkadot, OpenGov, and all this progress and all the challenges that come with it. I think it's a good time to also show to people how it's gotten quite easy to get involved. But before we dive into that, maybe we just start off more generally. What is governance? What are we talking about here? More generally, but maybe as well more specifically in the context of blockchains, decentralized networks, and why is it an important topic?
Absolutely. I mean, what is governance? I think that's the question. It's the legacy question. It is the way that a set of or a group of people come together to decide something, they take an action. And I think it's been a very historical concept. The primary sort of form of governance came in through democracy in various countries. And I think in different capacities is already in play in our real lives. When we talk about blockchain and Web3 particularly, I think that Web3 is a term coined by Dr. Gavin Wood, and essentially it means decentralizing the process of decision making. And when you talk about decentralizing the process, that's where governance comes in. It actually allows you to form a structured manner to approach a solution to any problem that's being posed or any proposal that's being made. I think that's what governance largely is, like very simply put.
Right. Gotcha. And if today we'll be talking more about Polkadot. So if we're thinking about governance on Polkadot, what is Polkadot's approach to organizing this process?
Definitely. I think with the larger software versus security debate, as well as whatever has been ever spoken about governance in context of Polkadot, it's considered to be one of the most advanced and mature forms of governance out there in blockchains. And there are a set of reasons for it. I think a few factors which I could point out, which were there in the original Gov1 and are still there in OpenGov. One of them being that it is a process which allows on-chain execution directly. So it's on-chain governance, which means there is no centralized authority which sort of stops in and steps in there to make an execution happen. It is completely automated. And so if a team's asking for a code merge or submitting a technical change, or rather even asking for funds to do something, as long as the community comes together to decide that, okay, this is something we should be considering, there is nobody who could stop the community from passing such a proposal. And the sort of there is no limit to what can be passed. Literally, something right from the birth of a new feature, new technical change, to the death of an entire blockchain can be passed using governance. And I think that's the power when people, which people can wield in a decentralized system. So when I talk about Polkadot, I think this is one of the most important things that I would consider that we should be aware of. The second one is around how delegations and how the entire governance process works. So with Gov1, we originally had one referendum passing in a fixed period of time, but with the OpenGov that has come in now, we have multiple tracks which are catering to a certain set of actions. For example, a spender track has a capacity to spend only certain amount of dot or Kusama as the chain may be. And multiple active proposals can be laid on these tracks and they could be passed together in order to sort of drive maximum value and show it how agile the entire process is. So at one end, you're discussing something like a referendum upgrade to bring in fellows. And on the other end, you're discussing something very simple, something like a tipper for someone who's created a beautiful YouTube proposal or YouTube video regarding something like a podcast that we're doing. So it's completely the end, like from one end of the spectrum to the other, you can do anything you want. and it is all happening in parallel, where people from the community are coming using their own power of dot, and using that to sort of come to a proper decision regarding what the process might be or what the actual outcome might be.
Right. And maybe for people who are more familiar with, let's say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, most people have heard about those cryptocurrencies. What's the difference with Polkadot's governance process versus their governance? What's different, and how are things better done through on-chain governance on Polkadot?
Right. So I think, as I mentioned, on-chain governance and the concept of delegations and the concept of conviction, or sort of locking in your tokens to get a multiple on what token you hold currently. I think these are all new novel concepts in Polkadot, which do not exist per se on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And just to sort of dive in a little more on what conviction as a topic means, it basically means as long as you're ready to put your money where your mouth is, which means as long as you're in favor of locking your dot for a longer period of time, your votes get multiplied. So say today I hold 10 dot and I choose to lock it in for say 3 to 4 weeks. The number of weeks I choose to lock it in, that's the number my dot gets multiplied with. So even though I voted with 10 tokens, when I lock it for 3 weeks, it's equivalent to 30 tokens, because I'm saying that if this proposal passes, for 3 weeks, I will not move my dot elsewhere, and I'm locking it in the system because I believe that this is contributing to something positive. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing that we have here at Polkadot. I mean, in addition to this, there is also something which is called agile delegation. And agile delegation basically means that I choose who is the right person I want to delegate to for a particular track. So, say today you might want to delegate to Polkassembly for the treasury tracks, because you believe that Polkassembly is doing a good job in evaluating proposals and making an unbiased judgment in favor of the community. But you believe Polkassembly may or may not have the technical expertise to judge how a root call or a root referendum should be passed. Similarly, an auction or a staking related referendum. So you could choose to delegate that to someone who is an ex-parity member who's actually worked on the delegation on the staking piece of things with the part of the team, and therefore are more educated in making that decision. So this agile delegation allows for one single individual to distribute their voting power to different individuals based on whatever the track may be or whatever the decisions being made in that track are. I think that's also a very, very powerful feature that we have right here. So all in all, I think there are a list of things I could send up, but just to summarize it, firstly, it's that we have on-chain execution, which is in a completely decentralized manner. Secondly, we have a completely decentralized system where people who use their own tokens to vote or delegate decide on how sort of governance should proceed, how action should be taken. And lastly, probably conviction as a concept, where you are putting your money where your mouth is and you're locking your tokens into the system because you believe it actually is something which is for the benefit of the system. So I think, yeah, those are the three things I would like to highlight for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. So basically, you to make that parallel to Bitcoin and Ethereum, you don't really have, if you hold the token there, you don't have any governance power, right? So you can't like vote with your ETH coins or Bitcoin on decisions that affect the network or affect the payout of treasury funds, because there is no decentralized treasury which is owned by the token holders on Ethereum or Bitcoin, but there is one on Polkadot, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that sums it up. There are platforms where you can go ahead and make discussions, make deliberations, but there is generally always a centralized entity involved which decides whether this money should go out from the foundation to the teams which are applying for it, whether this proposal should eventually be passed, or what is the best way in which this proposal say be get passed. For example, say you want to make a technical upgrade. Now, even though if the entire community is in your support, the phasing and the way it's being passed, so the way it will be executed on chain, is something that the team which is sitting there in a centralized manner decides. I think Bitcoin governance per se does not have this entire governance model where you can run treasury related activities, or where you can run complete off-chain execution of certain actions, and then sort of after getting a community vote, go and execute them on chain. So I think overall the model is very mature when you compare it to any particular ecosystem. And for each ecosystem, obviously, there are a few things that might be present in independent capacities. But as a whole, this is the most advanced ecosystem you would find out there in terms of governance.
Right. Because so the governance process is largely trust minimized, because you can depend on automatic execution of decisions and transparent voting on chain, so on the blockchain, which is all really exciting. So maybe a little fun question. Or first tell us what Polkassembly is. What are you guys doing in that realm of governance? And perhaps afterwards you could tell us if there was any sort of fantastical feature you could add to Polkassembly without worrying about any technical limitations or anything like that. What would it be?
So I think Polkassembly as an idea was incubated within Parity. It was a team which was set up within Parity, trying to sort of allow people to govern the token with the clear intent that this software should be controlled by the people in a decentralized manner. They come to decisions, and then even though it was a two-step process to reach the stage of governance we are, I think Polkassembly has been there as a part of it through and through, evolving from a small discussion forum to today managing the entire governance narrative that happens on Polkadot and all the parachains that are there. In terms of what our goal is pretty simple. We are not a centralized controlling authority on what can be discussed and what can't be in the Polkadot ecosystem. We are Our responsibility is to show all the information that is available on chain to the community, which may not be savvy enough to use any other tech specific tool. Show it like you would do in case of a Facebook or a LinkedIn or a Medium, any of the general platforms that you use, and allow people to deliberate in the best manner, providing and empowering them with the tools to sort of make that deliberation better. For example, if you do come in and vote on Polkassembly, you're asked to sort of put in a comment as to why you're voting for and against the proposal. And this allows the people who are proposing to understand it better, improve on their proposal, and come back and submit probably a revised version. So the deliberation is where Polkassembly plays the most important role. And the second part is easing the entire process. So today, if you were to go back to where it all started, Polka.js, it would be really difficult for a newcomer to go there and figure out how to vote with a single signature wallet, a multi-signature wallet, understand how these systems work. And our responsibility is to make it the easiest version of itself so that everyone who actually wants this ecosystem to grow can come up and probably in just a few clicks figure out what needs to be done, get it done, and move out and get back to their regular work. And I think that's what we enable the best.
Right. So you're making it easy for people to get involved in Polkadot's governance, in voting, in creating proposals, like you said, towards the treasury, in delegating your votes. So you're making the whole process easy for everyone to get involved.
Absolutely, that's our core goal. That's what we are here.
Okay. So I would say, actually, the second part of my question is there. I mean, you're the product lead. Is there some feature which it could be as crazy as you want, which you would like Polkassembly to have if there was no, let's say, technical limitations that prevent it, so to say, for example?
Absolutely. I think when you talk about decentralized systems, one of the most important things is bringing in accountability and bringing in reliability to the system, right? So whether it be me or you today, all of us may or may not have positive intents. Some of us are just here to sort of to hide our intents, to loot the treasury, to drain it off, to lead to the downfall of a protocol for our personal gains. And I think that is something which is really, really dangerous. So how do you identify these malicious actors? How do you ensure that the actors who are coming in with probably not a malicious intent, just to probably figure out a way to hack the system, how do you ensure they are more accountable? And I think that's something that I am really looking forward to. So when I talk about Polkassembly, the dream is that when you come to a proposal, you're able to look at this person, whether they are anon or whether they are verified, in a certain manner and decide whether this person is legitimate, whether their past history justifies funding them for another proposal, whether their technical change needs to be looked into with more depth because they might be hiding something, or whether they're a regular contributor who has enough skin in the game to be able to make a decision regarding whether something is right or wrong, and hence their intents are correct, right? And I think that happens only when we bring in sort of accountability to the proposal, to the beneficiaries, ensure that they are submitting each part of their progress to the community, And in return for doing so, they do get the right kind of traction, they do get the right kind of recognition for building out a product. And that's how the community works, right? You come up with a new idea, you propose it to the community, it goes back to the step where you are now working on it, and as you keep on pushing changes, you get live feedback because you're talking to the community. So it comes a full circle where an idea now is a mature product and the community is using it to sort of take it forward.
Right. So you would preferably like to add more ways to push accountability, so to say.
So I think one fun feature or one something which is really great to look forward to that we are working on is enabling people to to sort of have a higher stakes game in governance, which means they can come here and they can take predictions on whether a governance proposal actually goes ahead and passes or fails. And I think that induces a lot of new game theory the moment we introduce it as a feature, because now you're not just understanding the proposal and voting on it, you also have a certain extra skin in the game because you are sort of betting against the outcomes or for the outcomes. And even though it has its own downsides and upsides, I think it's something that will lead to a lot more engagement. It will keep bringing people back to see what's the latest on a proposal. It will ensure people do an extra layer of due diligence, and I think that's something that we look forward to.
Oh, cool. So did I get this correctly? Like being able to sort of bet on an outcome?
Absolutely. That's a way to put it.
Okay.
That's right.
Right. So this is something you're actually working on, and I wonder if Zeitgeist would be involved in some way, because I know there's betting markets.
I mean, something coming up very soon. I think you will be glad to hear about it, and the entire community will too. So yeah, I think that's enough hint to proceed from there.
All right, got you. Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, any sort of gamification or adding entertainment to it could go a long way. Because, I mean, as we know, voter participation is a challenge, like low voter turnout. And there could also be more delegated votes. People haven't delegated their votes as much either. But how about we actually take a look at your platform so people who don't know it can get a view of it, and perhaps we can show how to get involved in terms of voting and things like that, because I think there's many dot holders which have not thought about voting, maybe aren't aware, or if they're aware, they might think it's a bit hard or complicated to do. So we could actually show them how that's not the case.
Absolutely. I think it's a fair assumption to make that things might be hard because we're interacting with the blockchain, because we're doing something which is not like the entire process is not exactly clear to us, right? And as I mean, we tend to make that assumption a lot when we talk about things which are particularly on the blockchain. But when I talk about Polkassembly, I think it's rather simpler over here. We're not looking at something which is extremely complicated, because we understand that the point is to enable the community to come together and vote on things, right? It's not to make them feel as if something is super complicated or make them sort of overwhelmed by it. So when we talk about our voting process, I think the first step obviously is to just log into our platform with the wallet that you are using, and that could be anything, right? That could be simply a wallet that you choose to interact with, a wallet that you have as a hot wallet or a cold wallet, whatever it may be, right? And once you log in, the benefit is that you can directly jump on to sort of doing the actions that you are here for. So say today I have seen in our overview tab what is the treasury looking like, what is the dot token price looking like, etc.
Can you run us through these metrics that we see right there when we land on this page, which is also interesting to know for people who don't? You know, the treasury there with how much dot is in it, and then the price and so on.
Sure. So I think this is like the reason why we show these metrics right up front. Like, what's the reason for a platform like us to show the treasury, show the current price of dot? I think it's super critical so that people can understand what's exactly happening. What are the stakes here? So when we look at the first metric, it basically just shows us what's the kind of balance that treasury currently holds. It also explains how these balances come to being, even though they might be slightly complicated for someone who's looking at these words first time. Just simple Google search will help you understand how these balances are being generated. So when we talk about the balance, we can see it's $44 million roughly, which translates to around 294 million in terms of dollar value on today's date. And the reason why this is important, it's exactly the kind of budget for projects to build on Polkadot. And the more we build,
Mm.
it leads to a loop where we can sort of generate more fees, more income for the treasury, and eventually help this go in an upward trend. And I think that's exactly what also leads an impact onto the price of DOT, because the more the people are building, the more the activity is happening on the chain. I think the larger the price becomes because of that, because there is more demand and there is more impact. So I think that's how the first two metrics become very sort of tied to each other. They explain what the status of the market currently is, and as you can see, like dots up by around 25% in the last week, which is also a very very crazy number to look at, and it shows that there isn't been an
Mm.
uptrend. Now coming to the next two,
Right.
these are two concepts which actually started in Curve 1 and now have been moved to Curve 2 as well. They just indicate what is the next burn looking like, which means this is the amount of treasury funding that is available for this cycle. A cycle typically, or a spend period typically, lasts for 24 days. And in 24 days, if this entire amount is not distributed to projects or for different purposes as they may be, this amount is then burnt, which means this amount is removed from circulation, allowing the inflation to be tackled, or allowing the new tokens that are being sort of printed to be tackled, and hence maintaining the price roughly. So I think that's what,
Mm.
in a very, very brief manner, next burn and spend period mean. This is the period in which you can ask for the given amount of dot that is available to be burnt, if not spent in the next cycle.
I just wanted to note for people how significant that is. I mean, you have 40 million dot in there, which I can't read it right now, but I think there's more than $300 million dollars worth of a treasury. But this treasury is not owned by a person, by a company. It's owned by essentially it's like a DAO. It's a decentralized autonomous organization. It's owned by the network. So anyone that has DOT can vote over these funds to say what should happen with them. I think it's just a very interesting, I mean, technological but also social experiment here at a big scale. And I just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely. I mean, if you talk about it in any other sense, this is as large a fund as it gets for a normal VC as well. Like a lot of venture capitalists are investing this kind of amount out there. And here we are in a decentralized organization, which is allowing you to sort of request funds from this treasury as long as you're able to prove that you are someone who's worthy of receiving these funds. You have done your work, you've done sort of enough proof of work to get to this stage where you can be rewarded this amount.
Mm.
And I think that in itself is a pretty wonderful thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Once you land up here, I think the reason why we want you to look at these metrics first is also to generally get an understanding of where we are in the cycle for the tokens to be distributed, and what exactly is the health of the treasury. That's literally what the first two metrics do. And once you're done looking at this, you can just jump in and look at what exactly is the active status of different things that are going on. So you can see that there have been roughly 770 discussions created till date on Polkassembly for Polkadot, and there are 13 road proposals that were created till date. When you jump on any of these tabs, you can see what was the status of the latest 10 proposals created. So you can see that there is one proposal for deregistration of Equilibrium that's still going on, while the rest of them have been executed. I think
Mm-hmm.
jumping from there into a little more detail, what happens when you look at a proposal and actually want to go and see more details about it? As you can see, this is barely just the title and the proposer over here. So you might want to deep dive into what exactly is happening. Let's say we take Lunar Strategies proposals. They've sort of posted two proposals, seem to be looking and warranting a deep dive into. So when you jump onto the platform, you can see what exactly is the proposal about. You can see the title, you can see who is asking for the funding and who will the final amount be delivered to. You can also see what the tags are, and you can navigate using these tags to all different kind of marketing proposals or all different kind of Twitter proposals that were there. Or you could simply just look at the AI summary and decide whether you want to vote for or against this proposal. The AI summary is a feature which has received a lot of recognition. I think we're the first ones to do it in space. And you can actually look at these four categories where you understand what the problem statement is, how significant is their solution, what exactly are they looking to solve, and what will be the final expected outcomes with key metrics around, okay, they will be spending around $50,000 in KOLs, $10,000 for tier one media publishing, and so on and so forth. So now I've got a brief idea about what this proposal is. Say I am a domain expert, I may choose to dive into the details, and then I can go ahead and look at all the description they have done about what they will be sort of going about doing in a more detailed manner. And I can also choose to look at the comments that the teams are sharing. So, for example, here we have a few comments from Bill and Anel and a few anon people that what exactly is their opinion of such a proposal. And you can also look at a simple thing that, okay, when was this anon person or when has this anon person joined Polkassembly? And you can see that they are here since I think the past 2 months. So they're still a very, very new member in comparison to someone who might have been there for a pretty long time relatively. So I think this is Anel's profile, and Anel has been here for around 8 months. So this gives you a little more deep dive into who are these people, why are they saying what they're saying, and like are they actually even voting regarding what they're saying. So if someone chooses to vote, you'll be able to see the vote that they have done right next to it. Cool. I think that describes what we are looking at in terms of information. There are a few more things that you can see here. One of them being that the decision deposit for this proposal has not been paid yet, which means that this proposal, even if it is passing by a majority, this proposal will fail because the decision deposit is a critical step so that the proposal can move into a voting phase. I think once you have a chance to look at all these details, probably deep dive and understand about what are the different stages, what does the summary of a vote mean, you can look into what is the complete voting history of a proposal, and you can look at who all have voted till date and what exactly are their votes for or against. So, for example, you can see that 16 people have voted against, and probably the highest voter against is someone who is in a non-ID. You don't have information about him. But Coin Studio is someone you can reach out to and ask why they voted or why they've not dropped a comment. So I think these are the level of details that are available on our platform regarding a proposal that is going on an active vote. And once you've gone through most of these, whichever you would like to process, and you have a decision ready, you can just jump here and click on the cast vote button. The cast vote particularly explains who is the person or who is the account that is voting correctly. You might have multiple linked addresses to an account, so you can choose to play around with it, or you can choose to play around with the wallet you want to vote with. And then you just have to type in your balance. Say, I want to vote nay. I type in my balance. I choose a conviction, something we were discussing earlier about. Say, I choose to lock in this balance for 14 days. So now my vote will become 0.01 into 2x, which is 0.02, and I can go ahead and confirm my vote. And that's pretty much it. That's all it needs for you to go about doing a vote with the complete deep dive, let alone just looking at the summary and taking a decision much faster. And you will be shown what's happening on chain exactly here. I think now my vote has been completed. This is the amount of dot I have used. This is the conviction I've used. This was the timestamp. And I can go ahead and type why I did not like this proposal. Say there are not enough details, so there are duplicate proposals. And I can post it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that is how you go ahead doing a vote on Polkassembly with the complete deep dive. If you choose not to do the deep dive, you can simply just jump on you know about the proposal, you cast your vote, and you go away.
Interesting. So yeah, so basically you just connect your wallet to Polkassembly, you find the proposal you want to vote on, or you can have a look through proposals and see what you would want to vote on, and then read the discussion, read the proposal, make up your mind, click on cast vote, and that's pretty much it. So pretty simple essentially. Yet a lot of people don't have that time or the interest to go voting themselves. So there's another option to do on chain again, which is to delegate your voting power to someone else who might be more active in governance and vote actively. And you could have a look and see if they're aligned with your opinions, and then delegate your voting power to them. But before you show us that, I just wanted to say I found it interesting. You guys have implemented AI here, so I saw it's powered by OpenAI, and you get like a nice AI summary. I think that's really handy to have a quick understanding of a proposal without going through the whole text. And a decision deposit, for people who don't know, that's a deposit you have to make in order to submit the proposal, and it serves as accountability, right? Can you tell us more again about the decision deposit? Because I believe you lose it in certain cases.
Absolutely. So I think in terms of all the complicated jargons, like there are multiple resources. But what we've tried to do is we've tried to cover all of this on our own site as well. So say when you land upon here, you will be able to see what are the different metrics for a track. And very soon we'll just allow you to look at these tooltips and understand, okay, what does max deciding mean? What does decision deposit mean? I think that's the next step we are looking at. So if I were to explain what decision deposit means in a simple way, it's literally allowing the proposer to be more accountable for their proposals by ensuring that they put up a certain amount of money on the proposal and they lock it till the proposal gets passed or failed. So, say this track, which spends up to 100,000 dot, has a decision deposit of 200 dot. It basically means that you have to come whenever you want to propose something on this track, you have to come here and you have to pay a deposit of 200 dot. You have to lock it, or you have to sort of set it apart. You cannot trade it for any time. And once you pay this deposit, your proposal can now actually move into voting. And if it gets passed, it will get paid out. If it fails, your decision deposit will be reverted to you in due time. So it's just a deposit, which means you're setting apart this money to bring in more accountability for the proposal. One caveat here is if you choose to sort of rig the system, if you choose to make a malicious referenda, there is a built-in feature in Polkassembly, or in Polkadot governance, I would rather say, which is more accurate, that you will be this money will be basically burnt or taken away from you and be added to a part of the treasury. What does that mean? Say today I come here and I try to create a malicious referenda. It could be anything. It could be like literally shutting down somehow the entire Polkadot chain. So I have to deposit 100k dot a decision deposit for the root track, which is sort of the most powerful track that we have. And if the community identifies that this is a deposit, this proposal is something which is malicious, they can go and start a referendum killer referendum, which means that they will kill the particular referendum and this entire deposit will go to the treasury. So I think that ensures that you're not trying to play around with the system, you're not trying to rig it, and you're not trying to gain control in a malicious manner.
Gotcha. And if I submit a proposal and it fails, I still get the decision deposit back.
That's right. As long as your decision, as long as your proposal is not being killed, apologies for that, you will always get your deposit back. But if your proposal is being killed due to its malicious nature or due to some particular reason that the community believes it deserves to be killed, that deposit won't come back to you.
Right. Okay, very graphic. Yeah, I like it. Okay, and how can you delegate your votes? Can you show us that as well?
Sure. So I think that was just covering like how do the track level information and the voting work. I think if I jump very quickly to delegation, so delegation, as we were discussing earlier, is a very agile delegation system in Polkadot, and it basically means that you can delegate for each track separately to someone else. So presently, if you look at my delegations, there are no specific tracks that I have delegated for. It basically means all my 15 tracks are undelegated. So say I choose to deep dive into one track. I think there's a lot of activity happening on medium spender, and I would prefer that my dot be used for the right purpose. So I open the median center track. It tells me it's undelegated yet. And I look at the active proposals. So there are around like 10 different proposals. So I definitely want to delegate here so that someone can take a decision which is more educated here. Now, when I come over here, I can see a list of delegates that are present. These delegates include Polkassembly itself. They include Chaos DAO, Paradox, Ivy, and you can see what exactly is the voting power they hold, what are the number of proposals they voted on in the last 30 days, and how many delegations have been received by them. Which basically means that all the important stats that you need to make this decision are available to you here. Now, say I choose to come here and I delegate to Chaos DAO, for example. All I need to do is I need to verify which are the tracks that I want to delegate for. Say I choose to delegate for all tracks. I need to set a conviction. Conviction basically means that I will be locking my votes for this or my tokens for this period of time. and they will be coming back to me after this period has elapsed because the delegation will have expired. And then I click on the delegate button. That's pretty much it. So I think the only thing missing here is the balance, and the button will get activated after that.
All right, that's pretty simple as well. And if do they? Can you tell us more about if I do it with if I delegate with conviction? Does
Right.
that mean from the moment that I want to undelegate, I have to wait that period of the conviction period?
That's right. So basically, to
Right.
undelegate or to use your tokens for trading, which means to move it from one wallet to another, to sell it, buy it, or do any activity on it after that, you will have to wait for the delegation period to expire. You will not be able to do it before that.
Right. And one enactment period was it 24 days?
So it's configured on each chain level. It basically currently stands for Polkadot at 7 days, which means one enactment period would
7
roughly be
days.
7 days. I'll just confirm that to that's something that we should add here and something that's not there. But probably let me retake this once. I'll just confirm that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think one lock period is for 7 days, and it's equivalent to the enactment period. So it should be 7 days. The conviction here basically works in the same manner as when you vote or when you sort of lock your votes. So one conviction period over there is 7 days, and like the enactment periods that you sort of locked for in conviction, the number gets multiplied by 7 days, but it's something which is chain dependent. So the value might change for Kusama and it might change for Moonbeam, and I think we'll start showing that value here super soon to make it easier for the users.
Yeah, that would be easier. So if you vote at 1x, you're locking it up for 7 days on Polkadot currently. So if you want to undelegate, you have to come back to this interface, click on undelegate, and after that, you have to wait 7 days until you can actually move the coins. Is that correct?
Yes, you can see that you are delegated, and it will allow you to undelegate at the click of a button. So this is the date I delegated the user my votes on. This is the conviction I've used. This is the balance I've used. And because I have added no lock time, or I have added no conviction per se, it's the most default state of zero conviction. I just need to click on the undelegate button and the undelegation would be complete.
Right, right. And we can find this on polkadot.polkassembly.io/delegation. That's where you can manage your delegations.
That's right. Or you could just hop on our site and use the sidebar to navigate to the delegation. Both the options are there.
Right, right. Okay, we'll put these links in the show notes anyway. Right, and I mean, can you also submit a proposal right on Polkassembly, or does this have to happen somewhere else?
So presently, Polkassembly supports submission of just treasury-related proposals, which is basically 4 tracks that can be used to submit a proposal. It's a rather simple process. So say today I come up with an idea and I land upon Polkassembly. I want to submit a proposal with regard to this idea that I have. So I come in here and I click on the treasury proposal button through the floating action button here. It opens an interface where I have to first draft a proposal. So the most recommended way to set up a proposal is first create a discussion post directly using our interface here. So when you come to Polkassembly, we first recommend you to go ahead, share what you want to do with the community and get an opinion on whether they approve of it or not. This prevents the process from going on-chain directly. As you can see, the number of discussions are generally very high, and they show that there is something that's sort of being set up. There are teams that are sort of looking at your proposals. They're saying if they're building the same thing. If something has been if something has raised similar funds from before, the community will come up and say that okay, this is not a very new proposal. Probably you should not put it on chain as it may not pass, and so on and so forth. Once you believe your discussion has the right kind of feedback and you have integrated it into your proposal, the next step is to simply go ahead and then create your proposal. So when you start off, the first question that is asked is, have you initiated a discussion post for your proposal? If you choose to say no, the first feedback also it gives you is that discussion posts are very, very important because they allow the community to deliberate and sort of look into whether a proposal should be created or not. What is the community feedback regarding it? Say you've chosen to create a discussion post and link some post, That is the ideal process to go forward. But if you choose to ignore that warning, like I'm doing presently, and go ahead and create some random discussion, the next step is to create a pre-image, which basically means it is an image of what will happen on chain once you sort of put this proposal up. So, say I'm asking for funds on chain. My pre-image will require me to add two things. One is add a beneficiary address, which means who am I asking for this money to be sent to? It's something that you will find with the helper tooltips. Say I choose that the same address that I am creating the proposal with is my beneficiary address. It will give me nudges in accordance. So at this particular address, it's a single signatory address, which means that if I create this proposal and I receive money in the address and I somehow lose access to it, I won't be able to recover my money. So we request people to use multi-signature proposal addresses so that there are at least 2 of 3 beneficiaries or 4 of 6 or some threshold of that sort, which are required to sort of approve a transaction. And therefore, even if you lose your keys to one particular address, you can go ahead and use the remaining addresses to recover those amounts or the funds that you've received. So the beneficiary address is basically the target address in which you're requesting funds. You can add more than one beneficiary address, or you could add a multi-signature address. These are two different things. The multi-signature address is basically allowing more security for your funds in an address, while multiple beneficiaries are something you show on chain. For example, say we both collaborate on a venture and both of us want to request common funding. We add 2 different beneficiary addresses and we show the amount that each of the beneficiaries will receive, so that the public or the entire community is completely aware that this is what's going to happen once the amount is disbursed. After that, I think the next step is to add the funding amount you're requesting for. And basically, once you add the funding amount, it will automatically select a track for you. This is the most crucial feature because currently on Polkadot.js or any other platform, you need to choose which track you're going to sort of request money from. And that's very complicated for someone who's coming in new, someone who has no idea regarding the technicalities of governance. So in our case, you just simply put in the amount, and as you see, the track keeps changing based on what's the maximum spending capacity for that track. So when I put like a very, very large amount, only the treasurer will be able to sort of process that amount, and therefore only the treasurer track should be selected. And that prevents this decision from being made from the user. All the user needs to do is a simple 2 field answer. Choose the beneficiary who should receive the amount, add the amount that you're expecting the beneficiary to receive, and automatically the funding amount and the track will be populated, and you can go ahead and create your pre-image. That is pretty much it.
Cool. And what comes after? Is that there's a step 3?
Yeah, so once you click on this button, you will be shown a success state that this is how your pre-image looks. It's sort of a confirmation that do you want to proceed with this action, and you just need to click a create proposal button there and you're done. It's a simple CTA that you need to click and you're sorted with your proposal creation.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying this. This is really straightforward as well, which is nice to see that you keep making the process easier for getting involved in governance here. I think something we didn't mention was why even get involved, because I think there's many people who might hold dot coins but don't see the point in doing this. Basically, you have a say in decisions that affect your network, and essentially if you're investing in dot that affect your investment thesis. So you have a option, the possibility to make your voice known, make your opinion known, and influence decisions that affect the network and your investment thesis or whatever.
Absolutely. Apologies for interjecting, but yeah, just 2 more things to that. It's not just regarding your investment thesis as well, right? As a core developer, you might find something which is a critical fatality. It's something that could lead to the network being exploited. And you know that this is something that could get you rewarded. It's something that could save such a nice network or such a tremendous effort that has been done with core developers. It's not just the Polkadot mainnet. It's all the parachains and the chains connected, or the block space using chains, right? The ones who rely on Polkadot for security. So it allows you to ensure that any core change that needs to be pushed can be done so quickly enough, because we need the support and we need the approval for basically a proposal to pass, which means we need enough people to say yes, for that change to be done in critical time and ensure that it gets there in production. So I think that's also a very important aspect, that you are contributing to the technical side of things. The investment thesis, as you described correctly, is one for sure, where you're ensuring that your treasury is not being drained by malicious actors or sort of low quality actors who are not having the right kind of intents. And then there is also one complete other narrative where you're ensuring that you are continuously working towards the future of the protocol. You are allowing people to come in and be sort of rewarded for the new ideas they bring, the new upgrades they bring, the communities or the teams which are building cross chain and bringing an influx of users from other chains to your chain. I think all of this then contributes to the fact that you should participate in governance, or you should allow someone to participate on your behalf, so that at least the tokens you hold are being put to the right kind of use.
Right, that's perfect summary. Thank you for that one. Perhaps one more point, which I think also contributes sometimes to the reason why people don't get involved, is there's been criticism about token weighted voting. So whales, like people who hold a lot of dot, have more power to influence votes because they hold more dot, and they have their decision, their vote has more weight, because it's essentially not a process of one person equals one vote, because that's very hard to implement in a pseudonymous system where you can create lots of wallet addresses. And so lots of people who don't hold that much dot feel a bit powerless because their vote doesn't substantially matter. What's your view on this?
I feel what actually is a true whale is still very, very subjective, because we've barely scratched the surface with a few percent of the token being used for voting. Right, the moment we hit levels which some chains have actually achieved, like 30, 40, 50% of the tokens being used for voting, I think that's where we qualify what a whale is, right? Because if someone even owns like 0.5% of the entire supply, they can't sway the entire decision when a 30% of the entire supply is in voting. I think that's the stage we need to reach to. So presently, we've not achieved enough participation or enough delegation in the ecosystem, and therefore there are a few clusters of power. I believe in the long run, the number of these clusters will increase, and the amount that each cluster holds will therefore have lesser influence over a period of time. And effort to counter the whale effect, I think one of the most important things is to increase the percent of tokens that's coming into delegation or voting directly. And I think the second one is definitely more on-chain process, where we can evaluate a better framework to figure out how the whale voting influence can be subdued a bit. It can be sort of balanced. But I think, like every large economic system, I think Geoto is one of the largest whales. They've also published why they believe that things like quadratic voting, or why they believe like people who have higher dot or higher balances should have higher influences, have shared. And these are positive actors. They are looking for the benefit of the ecosystem because they are heavily invested, right? With someone who owns like 1% of your token supply, or 0.5%, or something of that sort, they are also invested very heavily into this protocol, and their sort of net worth depends on it to a great extent. So there is an argument that they would be voting for what seems right, and to counter their influence, as obviously as I shared, that we need to find more powers of or more clusters of power. We need to find a way to bring in the rest of the dot that's there in circulation. And I think the biggest example that I had also recently shared was the staking dashboard has like 50% of all dot tokens staked. Even if we manage to achieve like 20 odd percent or 30 odd percent, not the entire staking fraction, even if we manage to achieve 20 to 30%, I think it's enough votes to ensure there are sufficient power clusters and there is enough democracy in the process. And I think eventually someone who holds one dot will not have equal power as someone who holds 100,000. And that's how the system's meant to be. That's how you and I also would want it to be. But the number of power clusters are super important.
Right. Yeah, I hope by showing in this episode how easy it is to vote and how easy it is to delegate, we can do a small part in increasing the participation there. Real quick, when you're staking, can you vote with your stake dot as well?
Yes, you can vote with your stake dot, and it's actually like super important eventually to do this, because it shows Like it ensures that the dot is not just yielding you rewards, it's also being used effectively for the network's development.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much, Param. Any last words? What's next for Polkassembly? What are you excited about? Things like that. Anything you want to share?
Sure. I think one of the most important things that we are excited about is also increasing voter participation by focusing on three main aspects. One of them is to bring in more excitement into the process. So something around the prediction markets coming soon, as we shared. The second one is to allow easy delegation. We've not got our delegation dashboard to the level of operation that we want to. We will be reaching there soon enough, and we'll allow all kinds of wallet, not just your single signature wallets, but multi-signature proxies, hardware wallets, to participate in delegation, and that's our next goal. And the same holds then for voting as well. To increase the amount of participation via Polkassembly itself, we need to enable the support to proxy wallets, to multi-sig wallets. I think even though it's slightly a technical feature, it's something that you will see an immediate impact on. And it's something that you would have seen as well if you just compare the amount of voter participation on the first referenda versus the voter participation on like 213th referenda, where Cryptos chain put a referenda and the entire community came together to share their opinion because everyone had a lot of feelings about it. To today, I think you will see that there's been an increasing curve all over. And however it may have happened, I think it's important that we as a platform are able to capture that curve and continuously push forward on the narrative of bringing more people to Polkassembly, bringing more people to vote, and making it super easy for them with all the right kinds of information. I think that's the goal for us.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. All the best to you guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was lovely talking to you, and hope I was able to share something useful.
You were very much so. Thank you, Param.